Emily, good to see you. Congrats on your new show.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, excited to talk. I mean, you've been out front on this Epstein issue. God, it's funny because I have been amazed at how this has been handled, how the reaction to it has gone. Another piece kind of dropped last night. I'll be interested to see how much attention gets to it. But Alan Dershowitz was on my show a few months ago, and we put a clip out recently that he talks about this list and all this stuff. Then he goes on Chris Cuomo last night on News Nation. Here's what he had to say to Chris, and I want to get you to react on the flip side.
Is the government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them. From accusers that accuse that accuse various people of having improper sex, and that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did all the investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan. And they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it. And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed.
Emily, do you buy that?
I don't buy the Justice Department has no further information to disclose, because actually in the memo that Pam Bondi issued to sort of say that they were moving on from the case and say that no further disclosure would be warranted, they mention, in fact, that there are thousands and thousands of video files and the like, which their argument was would re-traumatize victims, understandably not something that anybody wants to be involved with, but that also, it's just not necessary for the public to see these sorts of things. Pam Bondi herself said that she would release additional videos showing that 1 minute missing from the raw video file that was uploaded last week. Happened every single night. We still haven't seen that. So I don't think it's true that the FBI simply has no more information to declassify. There are plenty of redactions that have been on declassified documents that the FBI could get rid of that would probably go a long ways towards transparency. I do think Dershowitz is correct. There is no client list. There's no specific piece of paper or document that functions as a list of clients of Jeffrey Epstein for trafficking purposes. I think that's probably accurate. But one of the big questions here is now what was eliminated by investigators before the Trump administration came in and what wasn't. What do they have access to? What don't they have access to? We need to know. And I just don't think people feel satisfied with the information they're getting, even about that.
So yesterday, Laura Trump was on Benny Johnson's show. She seemed to indicate that there should be or could be more coming or without. That Benny Johnson was with you last night. What do you know about where the next step might be?
Yeah, Benny was at the Turning Point Action Summit over the weekend talking to people. He told me yesterday he had been on the phone with federal law enforcement sources all day. Obviously, he had talked to Laura Trump. And he said that, quote, everything has changed. He He said the Trump administration seems to have gotten the memo that their handling of the situation over the last several days. And Sean, I'm actually curious what you make of this, even just from like a communication strategy, has been disastrous. And so Benny says that they, based on people he's talked to, will be moving towards more and more disclosures in the days and weeks ahead. What that looks like, I don't know. I think it's a positive sign that they are responding to the public backlash. But I also just can't wrap my head around, even if, Sean, they really don't have anything, let's just say hypothetically, they have nothing else to disclose. I don't think they could have possibly rolled this out in a worse way.
Oh, so I'm with you on this, right? So here's the deal. I don't know. And this has not been my wheelhouse. I admit that. But I know Dershowitz. He was the lawyer, as he mentioned. I trust kind of what he says because he wouldn't mislead you. He's already telling you I can't share with you. So I kind of look at that and go, okay, I agree with your assessment as well. There's no list, if you will, but there's a lot of information. But the problem is that the DOJ under Pam Bondi, when they had this big gathering of influencers a few months ago, rolls out this binder and says, here's all the Epstein files. And then they open it. There's really nothing there. But then they write at the end, like, more to come, giving the impression that there's more to come. Right. And then when Laura Trump goes on Benny yesterday and says, hey, I thought that was a tell. I'm always intrigued. The Trumps are smart. I mean, like Laura and Eric and Don, this isn't their first rodeo, right? They get it. So when she says and leans into, I think they'll have to put out more, I thought that was a tell, which was this goes along with kind of what you're saying, which I believe at some point they need to kind of go along the lines of Dershowitz. Here's what we have. Here's what's releasable. Here's what we can and cannot do vis-a-vis the court. But they need to explain more and maybe show a little more. That's my take on this, because I agree. They didn't roll this out well, and they created an impression that there was more to see. And then when you go, oh, there's nothing more to see, it's like, yeah, but you set the expectation.
And I wonder to what extent there's frustration at the White House, because it seems to me like the
everyone
DOJ...
I've talked about, Emily, everybody I've talked about is like pinning the tail on the donkey at DOJ and saying, they did this. This was not part of the plan.
And that started with what's now referred to as Bindergate in late February. We saw the DOJ take the lead on that. Reportedly, that was cooked up basically in Bondi world, made the White House look bad. And then it happened again. And so I think actually Pam Bondi, who has had support from the president has doubled down basically on his support for Pam Bondi in recent days. I don't know. It seems like she may have lost some goodwill and some trust from other members of the administration in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's interesting. He brought her to the soccer game over the weekend. And I think I actually saw Donald, before I really met Donald Trump, I actually watched Pam. I was at an event down in Boca Raton. This is almost like 15 years ago, whatever. And I'm watching those two interact. He had known Pam for a lot longer. So I just believe that relationship is much stronger than a lot of people know or believe. That being said, I know White House staff is pissed about how DOJ handled this. And at least I want your take on this. I think that's why Bongino's pissed, because he was like, I'm willing to jump on my sword here and admit that I've seen the file, nothing's there. But you then up the ante and make me look like that there should be more there and I'm covering up something.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, this was given to Axios in a Sunday night news dump. And on top of it, the memo was so dismissive of anybody's questions and was sort of just saying, that's it. We're not going to do anything else. So I think that's the correct read. And that's similar to what I've heard as well. I think Donald Trump seems to have sort of pacified Dan Bongino in the last 24 hours or so and talked him off the ledge of just outright quitting. But yeah, it looks to me like this frustration with the DOJ in particular is because Pam Bondi took the lead and just really wanted to strongly shut it down, not leave any room for opening it back up. And that's what ended up backfiring, because it was such a blanket statement that people said, well, we can't completely close it. You were the one who was just talking a couple of months ago about more coming out, and to then say we're ending it without any more, that put people like Bongino, it put Kash Patel, who hasn't said much. The other person who hasn't said much, J.D. Vance, who has been vocal in the past about the Epstein files, has been quiet over the last couple of days. And I think that speaks volumes about the frustration with how it was handled last week.
Here's the thing. There was a tweet that your show put out and it said, Emily's going down memory lane to talk about why you should never just simply trust the FBI. I get that. That being said, I know Dan fairly well. We're not besties. I've known Kash a while. To me, when they are willing to put their name behind something and say, we've seen the file, I believe them. And it's just because I know that those guys, if they didn't mean it, they wouldn't say it. They might find some way to be cutesy or obfuscate a little, but like, I know the two of them well enough that like, they're not the guys that'll lie. Like that's not their thing. And I do believe, now, does that mean that they saw a file, but the file was incomplete because of maybe what the Biden team left them? Maybe. But I believe based on what they've seen, is that good enough for you?
It's not good enough for me, and I don't know that it's good enough for either of them. And that's what I'm curious about actually going forward, is what information they have been given. Now, Kash Patel as FBI director, I imagine, has had access to a significant amount of information. But to your point, what they probably want to do, and I would imagine, just again from a pure political strategy perspective, would have advised Pam Bondi to do, had she not already put them in the situation they're in, is to show more of the work. Say, these are the files that we have in front of us. Here were the files that were there before the Biden administration, or some way to track what has existed, what hasn't existed, because this is a story that has sown so much distrust in government that even people who are, as MAGA gets, like Benny Johnson, for example, are skeptical of the official narrative and are not just willing to trust, because the story is so dark and so tragic that people are really going to need principals, people in positions of power, to show them and to say, here is reason for trust. And that's another reason Bondi put them in a really bad position with those binders in February, and with kind of the last week of saying nothing after in February, being like, more to come. That just puts them in such a tough position that we now need to, I think, see them showing their work more.
Yeah, this is like elementary school, where it's like I always used to like do the math problem and the teacher would be like, show me your work. Like, I need to see it. I agree. I think they should literally hold a press conference, and they don't have to show it to us, but I think to say, like, here is what we know. Like, here are files, maybe some blacked out stuff, some videos that we don't get to, like, I don't need to see inappropriate materials, but I need to know that they see, that they, like, this idea of pretending it doesn't exist. But the question that I have for you, kind of going forward, is something that I watched the Turning Point Summit, or some of it this weekend. Everybody from the wait staff all the way up to Charlie Kirk is talking about Epstein and what this means for the movement. Charlie has said, I'm done talking about it. Dinesh D'Souza says, I'm done talking about it. I mean, does this feel like an issue that splinters MAGA, or does everyone get over it soon?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm still curious about it, because I think it depends on how the administration handles things in the next couple of days, not couple of days, couple of weeks. And they may even get patience for a couple of months from, people like, good examples would be Benny Johnson, Liz Wheeler, Megyn Kelly, who have said, Matt Walsh also recently have said, we're not letting go of the story. Now, of course, for the average American, a kitchen table issue, when they sit down at dinner and think about what's going on in politics, they're looking at their bills. They're looking at their health insurance premiums. They're looking at the inflation and cost of groceries and rent and all of that. So it's not as though this is urgent, top of mind for people as the midterms are coming up, but as a symbol, I think it is really important to a lot of people, because they say, and this was a quote from one of the girls who went to the Turning Point conference. She told NBC News, basically, that Trump said he was the outsider coming to kind of expose the insiders. And if you're just, I'm paraphrasing the girl, then telling us, you're one of the insiders, that's a problem. And so I think maybe just on that question of like fundamental trust for a lot of the base, they are going to need to see more to retain that sense of enthusiasm and, MAGA camaraderie that you see at rallies and such. You know this better than anyone, Sean. That's a real thing with the Trump base. And to keep it, I think there's something serious that the DOJ needs to do.
It's a proxy issue is the way I keep framing this, is that people are like, dude, if you can't get this right, then... But you one name that you didn't mention, you had Tucker on your show the other day, and he doesn't seem to have given up on this issue as well. I guess, do you think that with respect to all the voices that you mentioned, who's the one that if you're the Trump White House, you go, this is the one that we need? Is it Megyn Kelly? Is it Liz Wheeler? Is it Benny Johnson? Is it Tucker Carlson? Charlie seems to have gotten the memo. The president said he spoke to him. But if you were one of the top comms folks at the White House right now, Stephen Chung, Taylor Budowich, Caroline Leavitt, who do you think you need the president to call and say, hey, you need to talk this person off the ledge?
This is going to sound very biased because obviously my show's with the MK network, but I would probably be particularly concerned about Megyn Kelly, given that Megyn has a legal background that has brought a lot of depth to her coverage. She had a debate with Ben Shapiro yesterday, both legal minds. And I think, the questions that Megyn is asking are putting those questions in the minds of a lot of Trump supporters, and just from the legal background that are very, very significant. And so that's how I would be concerned about. I would probably also, to be honest, be concerned about two other people, and that would be Don Jr. and J.D. Vance, who I just have a hard time believing have been totally disabused of the notion that there's anything, more nefarious happening behind the scenes. Not that they're going to sort of go out and talk about it, but that they're probably still going to want to pressure Pam Bondi and the DOJ internally for extra information.
Yeah, that's a good, although you're right. I mean, Don and JD are the least folks that are going to say anything bad. I want to turn your attention to something else that I know that you've talked about. The Democratic nominee for mayor in New York, Mondami. I'm curious. I mean, look, I think every day that goes by, he becomes closer to becoming mayor. Now, Cuomo jumps in. And sort of is challenging everyone else. You all should coalesce around. I mean, he's basically leaving it up to, we all should coalesce who's ever number 2 on September 1st, because he thinks that that's him. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. I do think that right now it's in the mid 80s and growing that Mondami is going to be the mayor. That being said, A, what does it say about the state of the Democratic Party? And B, what should people on the right do? Because I see some people going at him as a person, trying to make, his background versus his policy. So one, what do you think it says about where the left is? Is it just a one-off? And then two, how do we on the right handle him?
Yeah, and taking the second question first, because this is, I think, actually a really exciting question for people on the right. One of the reasons Mamdani was able to beat a very lazy Cuomo campaign is because the Cuomo campaign was kind of relying on smears, was relying on these reflexive, like, he's a crazy socialist, and I'm Andrew Cuomo, I'm the establishment. I think there's a real opportunity for the right to look at, why did Donald Trump capture the support of young men? Why did he capture the support of Gen Z and millennials in ways that Republicans never thought possible? Well, to some extent, it's because he hammered the question of affordability over and over again. He spoke to the misery of what it's been like for people who grew up, let's say, in the shadow of the Great Recession or during COVID. I mean, you talk to young people and you realize what a weight that is on their shoulders. And Mamdani did too. So Republicans now have an opportunity, I think, to come up with good conservative answers to the rent crisis, the affordability crisis. And that's an opportunity for the right. The Democrats.
But don't you think, you're pulling a great thread here. And I feel like there's something that I always say, like, it's the tactic too. Donald Trump met people where they were at, and he said things that they thought, but they would never say. Mondami, when you watch his videos, I don't like anything that he actually stands for. But that guy got retail politics and in the modern age. And I think I was fascinated when you were just saying that. Don't you think that some of it is tactical as well?
Oh my gosh, totally. I think that's totally true. I mean, I interviewed Mamdani with one of my co-hosts in November, and it was right after the 2024 election. And he had actually just been out in, I think it was the Queens and the Bronx, talking to people who had voted for Trump, and he was making his pitch to them. And he was like, the only thing that they want to know about is affordability. Their groceries are too high. So he was out there busting his butt, talking to people, retail politics. He's likable. He got the social media strategy. So it's not as though it's like going to be really easy for anybody to take him down. But at the same time, Cuomo and Eric Adams, it's sort of too bad that there's not like a Republican foil for Mamdani, who's, I mean, Curtis Lee, while he's out there, he's busting his butt too. But it would be interesting if there was like a strong conservative foil to Mamdani in this race, who actually was like, well, we don't need 5 city-run grocery stores. We need to do X, Y, and Z to reduce the cost. And as mayor, I'm going to do that. So I think nationally, that's a huge opportunity for Republicans. Democrats if their options are Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo in New York City, arguably the most powerful city in the entire world, and they're doubling down on that instead of saying, well, maybe this Zoran guy did something right, which they are. Now you have billionaires lining up to support Cuomo and Adams. That is I think it's just sad for voters. I think it's sad for people who live in New York City that Democrats can't get their act together to beat a 32-year-old, 33-year-old Democratic socialist.
But is that, I mean, I guess my point in saying this is it just like, hey, this is New York, it's sad for them? Or is this something that the National Party now has to own?
No, I think it's totally something the National Party has to own, because the people with the momentum right now are Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who are drawing big crowds in red states on their Fighting Oligarchy tour this spring. And so again, Democrats are giving voters an option where it's either far left Democratic socialists or these like warmed over Clinton, Biden type centrist Democrats, and they can't just give someone a likable candidate. And it's like, if you're a Democratic voter right now, these days are bleak.
Yeah. Emily Jashinsky, thank you for being with us. Always appreciate your take, and congrats on the show and all the success you're having.
Thank you so much, Sean.
You bet. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.